on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. They want to live by one set of rules, and they want the rest of us to live by a separate set of rules. We've got one side of the equation that's truly fighting for freedom, our freedom, trying to break those chains, if you will. And then we've got the other side. Well, they don't want freedom. They say a lot of stuff, but they're actually more divisive. I mean, if you look at the left, just by the very nature of who they are, they've got to define everybody into some sort of letter or initial, right? LGBTQ, right? Or are you black or white? Are you man or a woman? Where are you from? Like everything's about some sort of way that I can segment you into a group. They say that everybody on the right's divisive, but they're the ones that, by the very definition of who they are, break people into categories. That's division, if I've ever heard of it. It's certainly separation, which is not healthy. So we've got a group of people that want to separate us, don't want us to agree with each other or talk to each other. And they're trying to take away the little bit of freedom that we've still got. And this is that place where all of us need to fight. I've got some amazing examples right here where all of these people are showing their true colors and what we can expect and what we can hope for. We've got some great news of Barr and a really incredible interview with him and CNN, and how CNN is truly being the left, the deep state, all these things that we don't like. They're showing their ugly colors, and Barr's answers are fantastic. Trump's stirring the pot with Pelosi because Pelosi's in trouble with her salon action. Ted Wheeler's in the news. We've got a lot of great stuff. Let's get right into it. What we've got going on, this controversy with Nancy Pelosi is just out of control. Out of control, the way she wants to live by a separate set of rules than what everybody else in this area and state has to do. So let's first off check out how some of this starts to play out. This is just in the way she chooses to act as a victim. She makes it sound like she got set up. Like, how do you end up in a salon? I don't see any place in the video where there's a guy following her with a weapon saying, you must come in here and get a blow dry or whatever the heck, or get blown. But that's not how this played out, it seems. Let's take a look.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is caught on video getting her hair done indoors, violating San Francisco restrictions. Tonight, why she says she was set up.
He hammered House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Twitter for getting her hair done inside a San Francisco salon and without a mask, as seen here, violating the city's COVID rules. Pelosi said the salon told her she could be inside.
They said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time. I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup.
Wait, isn't she the one that's involved with making the laws? Don't they actually make the laws? I didn't know we were allowed to check with the local salons to see what the state laws are. Huh, that's so strange. Didn't you guys know it was that easy? That's all you got to do. Just call your local salon and they'll tell you what the laws are as far as COVID. Don't think so, Nancy. Let's continue.
Back now with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, accused of a double standard. Speaker Pelosi seen getting her hair done inside a salon in San Francisco despite COVID restrictions keeping them closed. The owner releasing the video, Pelosi calling it a setup, saying the stylist told her it was legal.
It was clearly a setup. I take responsibility for falling for a setup by a neighborhood salon that I've gone to for years.
Let me translate. Basically, I thought I could sneak in a quick little blow dry without anybody finding out. It was a setup. Well, you're a liar and it's on tape. So call it what you want. Tomato, setup, you suck.
Critics say Pelosi getting her hair done while businesses are closed is an insult to struggling owners.
The salon wasn't following the rules. Even though indoor services are allowed by the state of California, the city of San Francisco only started allowing any hair appointments on Tuesday, and they must be outdoors. Shampooing isn't allowed, and masks are required. Pelosi was pictured without one.
Now, I just have my hair washed. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair? I always have a mask.
I thought we were supposed to wear a mask at all times. In fact, when I went to the salon after they first opened in phase 1, I had to wear the mask while I got my hair done. In fact, the mask was all wet on the sides, and I'd sort of take it down, but again, come on, this is crazy, Nancy.
I always have a mask.
Republicans accusing Pelosi of hypocrisy.
They preach to the American people that it should be one way, and yet in private, when the cameras are not rolling, and in this case, I guess the cameras were rolling, it shows a very different story.
And President Trump tweeting, quote, Pelosi is being decimated for having a beauty parlor opened when all others are closed.
So again, it's that double standard, that different set of rules that they live by that you don't. In fact, I love the quote. Crazy Nancy Pelosi is being decimated for having a beauty parlor opened when all others are closed and for not wearing a mask, despite constantly lecturing everyone else. We will almost certainly take back the house and send Nancy packing. Oh, you know that just drove her insane. Now, on top of everything else, her again playing the victim card is fantastic here. Now, the first question, it's kind of hard, and I'm not going to play it because you can't really hear her anyway. But this is the end of the lady asking the question, and then Nancy Pelosi talking about how she's a victim.
No, I've been there over the years. I've been there many times. I appreciate the question, and let me just say this: I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that. When they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for the setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Do you think you owe the service industry an apology? I just spoke to a San Francisco barber who's a fan of yours. He supports you, but he thinks you owe the service industry an apology.
Well, I don't. I think that that this salon owes me an apology for setting up. But I will say this, in fairness to him and in sympathetic to him, we have to get our country moving.
So it's like a deflection. We have to get our country moving again. You won't come to the table and help that along. You also have a double standard as far as how this game is played. You've got this double standard, and all these people that are hair beauticians that cannot go in and do their jobs. You, for some reason, can live by a different example. And then when other people are upset that their livelihood's been destroyed, yet for some reason you live by different rules and they call you out on it, you actually point the finger back and say, no, it's your fault, and I'll be waiting for my apology from you. Thank you very much. Because I trusted you that I would be able to do something secretly and not tell anybody and, get away with it. And you suck and didn't let me. Well, thank you, Nancy. Hey, speaking of people that don't like to do what they should do, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler. He's moving. Apparently he's moving from his $840,000 condo. And the reason he's moving, apparently, is to avoid rioters targeting his home. But they're just peaceful protesters, aren't they, Ted? I mean, I understand when I read this article here, it says Ted Wheeler wrote to neighbors in the building to say it would be best for me and everyone else's safety and peace. Wait, hang on a second. I thought these were peaceful protests. So I would think, Ted, having more of these people in the lobby of your condominium would enhance the peace, wouldn't it? When you have peaceful protests, don't they bring along with them large amounts of peace everywhere they go? I thought that was the definition of peaceful protests. I mean, or are you saying that when they stand there in peaceful protest with fire burning behind them, like that actually affects you too, or at least your neighbors that apparently have some sense of common sense about them? Because you don't. So anyway, what's best for safety and peace? Interesting. That he moved from the building because people keep showing up at his building. Now, the best part is he's going to move to some place where he, doesn't tell anyone where he's at. I wonder why. Apparently, he doesn't want anyone to know. Oh, wow, that's so crazy. Never saw that one coming. Yeah, thanks, Ted Wheeler. We'll see if you make it. And again, they're trying to recall him, so it's kind of interesting. So another thing that's happening right now, we've got 2 states in the union that have large populations and feel that they should be able to govern and show everybody the way. These are the leader states. California and New York are showing us the way from sea to shining sea. I mean, minus all those people in the middle, but I mean, from sea to shining sea, from bookmark to bookmark, we got this covered. Except we need to borrow a bunch of money because our budgets are all out of whack and we've defunded our police and now we've got crime and all sorts of stuff that's just really tearing apart our cities. But we're going to keep leading the way. We're going to keep showing you how to live. Well, apparently Trump's disagreeing with that. Again, fighting for our side, two-sided, two-tiered justice. My administration will do everything in its power to prevent weak mayors and lawless cities from taking federal dollars while they let anarchists harm people, burn buildings, and ruin lives and businesses. We're putting them on notice today. Wow, look at that. Trump is ordering the federal agencies to review the defunding process. New York and 3 other lawless cities, which, of course, is New York, Washington, D.C., Seattle, and Portland, where all of the craziness is happening. So Trump is going to be pulling away. My administration will not allow federal tax dollars to fund cities that allow themselves to deteriorate into lawless zones. This is a direct quote from Trump. So apparently, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, is a little upset, and Cuomo decided he wanted to come out and trash the president. I love this. This quote is just fantastic how this played out. You've got to hear this.
He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York. Forget bodyguards. He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. From the point of view of New York City, this has been the worst president in history. Look, the best thing he did for New York City was leave. Good riddance. Let him go to Florida. Be careful not to get COVID.
Which all of that obviously is like, I hope you get COVID, is basically what he's saying. But whatever the case is, a lot of people are trying to say that's a threat. I think that's ridiculous. But what it is it's absolutely irresponsible. Leadership at the state level of a very many millions of people, 30 plus million people or whatever in New York. And he's talking about how Trump's going to need an army to walk down the street in New York. That is really kind of weird. And the fact is, too, Mr. Cuomo, it also speaks of how unsafe your city is. Because I'll tell you another thing. A Trump supporter can't walk down the streets in your cities either. I can't wear a red hat, let alone if it actually says Make America Great in your streets, in your city. You've got one of the most dangerous cities out there. The number of deaths and killings per week are on the rise. But you keep talking tough, man. You keep doing what you're doing. Now, Biden, once again, ending cash bail is turning New York into a criminal cesspool, and a Biden presidency will only magnify this problem. I mean, Kamala Harris has got all sorts of things against her and how she handled criminal reform in California. Biden's responsible for that bill back in '94 that basically put a whole bunch more people in jail because he didn't care whether or not there was a reason or how you got to this place where you're on the streets causing crime. I don't care. You got to go to jail. Well, thanks, Biden. Now you're talking about how you want to pull money from police places and go into funding other plans that help really make these people better or help address what's causing the crime. Now, all of a sudden, he's got a different thought. Again, flip-flop. This guy's led by the progressive. The progressive own him. One of many examples. They'll take your guns and everything else. Kamala Harris came out and said that too. So again, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. I mean, there's so many amendments that they're just on a roll and trying to take away from us. It only gets worse. But, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have someone that's fighting for us. Someone that actually cares about us. Bill Barr has an amazing interview here. Well, CNN's Wolf Blitzer is trying desperately to pin all sorts of crazy things, calling it racism, calling it systematic racism, this whole huge conspiracy against the American Black community, trying to take them all down, and we're doing it in any number of ways. Now, I will agree. I think there's a very large deep state agenda against the Black American and the lower income cities for sure. But the way that he's suggesting that it's happening and what Bill Barr is saying, Bill Barr is talking more about the truth. Wolf Blitzer's doing more of that standard spin that the media is so famous for. This is a great bit. I hope you can give it. If you have to, skip ahead a few, but this is like 5+ minutes. It's a great interview.
So you testified that you think you understand the conversations, this is when you were testifying before Congress, that black parents have with their children about racism in this country. How do you think African American parents around the country explain to their kids what exactly happened to Jacob Blake, for example, and why that police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the Blake case.
Why not?
Because I think it's different than the Floyd case.
What's different?
Well, Floyd was already subdued, incapacitated, in handcuffs, and was not armed. In the Jacob case, he was in the midst of committing a felony, and he was armed. So that's a big difference. From the standpoint,
his family says he wasn't armed.
Well, I think
there may have been a knife in the car, but he wasn't armed when he was shot.
Well,
that's what his family and his lawyers say.
I stated what I believe is to be the difference, and that's why I don't want to talk about them as if they're interchangeable. Okay. Now, I did say that I do think that there appears to be a phenomenon in the country where African Americans feel that they're treated, when they're stopped by police frequently, as suspects before they're treated as citizens. I don't think that necessarily reflects some deep-seated racism in police departments or in most police officers. I think the same kind of behavior is done by African American police officers. I think there are stereotypes. I think people operate very frequently according to stereotypes, and I think it takes extra precaution on the part of law enforcement to make sure we don't reduce people to stereotypes. We treat them as individuals.
Because on this program, Jacob Blake Sr., the father, said there were two justice systems in our country, one that shot his son 7 times in the back, and one that let the 17-year-old white gunman walk away after shooting and killing 2 people. Your reaction?
Well, I think the gunman escaped, and the government of Wisconsin is seeking his extradition.
But are there 2 justice systems here in the United States?
No, I don't think there are 2 justice systems. I think the narrative that that the police are on some epidemic of shooting unarmed black men is simply a false narrative, and also the narrative that that's based on race. The fact of the matter is, it's very rare for an unarmed African American to be shot by a white police officer. There were 10 cases last year. 6 of them, the suspect was attacking the police officer physically. So these are rare things compared to the 7,000 to 8,000 young black men who are killed every year.
Because you've said you don't believe there's systemic racism in the justice in our justice system among the police, but you did say this. You did say, I do think it is a widespread phenomenon that African American males in particular are treated with extra suspicion and maybe not given the benefit of the doubt.
That's what I just said.
But doesn't that sound like systemic racism?
No, to me the word systemic means that it's built into the institution, and I don't think that's true. I think our institutions have been reformed in the past 60 years, and if anything has been built in, it's a bias to non-discrimination and safeguards against that. And so that's what I'm reacting to on systemic. And also I think we have to be a little careful about throwing the idea of racism around. Racism usually means, that I believe that because of your race, you're a lesser human being than me. And I think there are people in the United States that feel that way, but I don't think it is as common as people suggest. And I think we have safeguards to ensure that it doesn't really have an effect to someone's future. I think we've made a lot of progress in the past 60 years. To listen to the American left nowadays, you'd think we've gotten nowhere after all.
There's no doubt there's been a lot of progress, but do you think black people are treated differently by law enforcement than white people?
I think there are some situations where statistics which suggest that they are treated differently, but I don't think that that's necessarily racism. Like, didn't Jesse Jackson say that when he looks behind him and he sees a group of young black males walking behind him, he's more scared than when he sees a group of white youths walking behind him? Does that make him a racist? Does that make him a racist?
But it sounds like there are 2 systems, one for blacks, one for whites. That sounds like there's still racism in the justice system.
Well, no, I think we have to make sure that, stereotypes do not govern our actions in the justice system. And I think police departments do a pretty good job of trying to police against that. And I think there's more progress that can be made and more reform, and we're going about that. But the demonization of the police and the idea that this is so widespread an epidemic is simply wrong.
On Monday night, President Trump compared the police shootings, like Jacob Blake's, for example, in his words, to a golfer choking and missing a 3-foot putt. Is that how you view police shootings, like a golfer missing a 3-foot putt?
No, I think what the president was saying there, and it's something that I think should be said and has to be said, that in many of these shooting situations, it is not because of race. It's because the officer is scared for his life and is in a situation where a half a second can mean the difference between his life and his death, and he's wrestling with somebody, and they sometimes may do things that appear in hindsight to be excessive. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's racism.
And that's an important distinction that he's making. Again, he took some tough questions. Wolf Blizzard, Blizzard, it sounds like a delicious frozen beverage from, anyway. He took some tough questions and actually, I think, gave really good answers. And he kept trying to spin it down the systemic racism that the whole Justice Department's hosed. Again, they say everyone else is divisive, right? They say everyone else is divisive. This is what they're saying on the media. It's not that. That being said, I felt like his answers were fantastic. And really the way they tried to bring out that, well, Trump's just trying to say the killing of all these black people is as simple as missing a 3-foot putt. It's like, shut up, Wolf. First off, why would you even name your kid after an animal? That's not even okay. I don't care if you put an E at the end. It's still a freaking animal. Get over it. Name them like Person or Bud. Anyway. Anywho, this is interesting. This came out. We've got a very famous epidemiologist. His name is Harvey A. Risch. I think I'm saying that right. He is from Yale's School of Public Health. Interesting, yes. Harvey A. Risch, I guess he's got something, but he's an MD and a PhD, professor of epidemiology at the Yale School of Public Health. As professor of epidemiology, yada, 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 he's basically saying, I've been here, I've been asked about things, how to deal with diseases and whatnot too. Now, he's not Fauci, but this guy is in that line of work, in that field. He's a teacher. This guy knows what he's talking about, supposedly. And he's talking about, on May 27th, I published an article in the American Journal of Epidemiology entitled Early Outpatient Treatment of Symptomatic High-Risk COVID-19 Patients That Should Be Ramped Up Immediately as Key to the Pandemic Crisis. Now, first off, really? That's your title? Dude, that's like 25 words. Get out of there. Anyway, that article, published in the world's leading epidemiology journal, analyzed 5 studies demonstrating clear and cut and significant benefits to treated patients, plus other very large studies that showed medication safety. Now, the key to all this, and there was recently an article that came out, was that they said that using hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin actually caused an increased risk. Well, one very important thing is they keep leaving out this nutritional supplement, zinc. They've always talked about the 3 together being very important. And if you don't take the 3 together, things don't work quite the same. But again, they've got a real problem around the potential use of hydroxychloroquine. And don't know why. This guy is, again, a very credentialed individual that's wondering why. There's ample evidence to suggest it's certainly worth looking into using. And so many people are wondering why. Why is it not okay to use a pharmaceutic that's been around for decades, that we understand is safe, and that people have been taking for malaria and other things for a while? Now, there's speculation as to why, but ultimately, that's the big question. Why is it not okay? Why are we waiting for some new medication that obviously is not going to have its cheaper version, right? The generic won't be existing for this new drug. And so trillions of dollars will be made off this new drug when we've already got something that would at least work and get us moving in the right direction. Again, why is that not okay? It's a good question that this credentialed professor of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health, Harvey A. Risch, MD and PhD, suggests or says. I don't know. Maybe his letters and alphabet soup after his name aren't quite sufficient. So unfortunately, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan, she's so sad, asked Washington Supreme Court to stop the recall effort. I don't know why they don't like me. I did everything I could. Really? Really? You had a freaking people take over a section of your state, and you're wondering why, or sorry, your city. I don't know why everyone's sad. Really? Really, Jenny Durkan. Bye. I hope you enjoyed your job, and see if you can walk down the streets like Cuomo was saying about Trump in New York. Of course, New York's also not safe, nor is Seattle or Portland or Washington, D.C. So just don't walk in any of those cities. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan, just don't walk in any of those cities. Oh, yeah, one of them was yours. Don't do that, and you should be safe. Now, finally, one thing, this really, God, I just thought it was weird. I thought this was wrong on so many levels, and I don't know, whatever. Graceland, I've never been there. I lived in Tennessee for a while, but I was way over on the other side of the state. And frankly, I didn't want to drive all the way down to Memphis to see Graceland. But I, not like a huge Elvis fan, but I like the guy. Apparently, the wall outside used to have cool little messages on there from years and years and years of people going to Graceland to see their famous person and whatnot. Well, all of our wonderful BLM people decided to spray paint on this wall. It's almost like a historic thing that can never be put back in place. It's one thing to have a statue and spray paint on the statue, and all you got to do is just wipe the spray paint off and the statue looks like it used to. This, you can't wipe the paint off because it's painted over paint. Like there's already paint and writing there, and if I clean off that, why take off the original message that was the history? It's like graffiti that was historic. It's just one more example of the world that we get to inherit if we vote for Biden, or if we vote for this Kamala Harris, who's ultimately going to be in charge, or if we keep voting people like Wheeler into office, or if we keep voting Democrat House of Republican or House of Representative members, if we keep voting them in, we're going to keep getting people like Pelosi. Now's the time to vote people out. We got the elections coming up November 3rd. Come on, man. Get out there, make your vote, make it count, and let's get these bozos out of office, and let's try to see if we can get more of our freedoms back and maybe get freedom for this whole country back. And then hopefully all these people on the left that hate us right now, hopefully they just end up being like, oh no, yeah, you guys' world's pretty cool. All right, yeah, we can live with this. We seem to be getting along. Kumbaya. Oh, everyone's like the same and we're all together and we all have the same freedoms and we're all on a level playing field. Or you're in this box, I'm in this box, you're over there and that, right? I don't know, separatists. You guys on the left are not bringing us together. You're definitely putting a wedge and divide between us. And certainly because you keep listening to your crazy progressives on the left, you're losing control. Thank you for joining me. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.